Welcome to the I Will Come to Fight podcast. This is episode 5. This week I have with me Mr. Amrik Bisler. How are you doing?
Good. He nailed my name.
Yeah, thank you. It's always a test of whether it's going to be a good podcast or not.
Yeah, it's a good start.
Yeah. Amrik, you're 23.
23,
That's
yeah.
mad. That's mad that you're younger than me. You're like
Really?
7 feet tall, built like a brick shit house. Amrik is a jiu-jitsu... How would you describe it? I say jiu-jitsu cat, but that's because I'm a nerd. What do you tell people?
Just a jiu-jitsu
Player,
competitor.
competitor.
Yeah. People say player as well. It sort of varies. Fighter sometimes.
Fighter.
It just sort of, whatever you fancy really.
Do you see it? Do you see yourself as a fighter?
Starting deep, big topic. In a way, you could say that. I mean, I sort of just mix up the terms every now and again. Like sometimes, say like leading up to a competition, I'll say like, yeah, I've got like fights coming up, or talking about a competition, I had X many fights or matches. It just sort of varies. So in that sense, you could sort of refer me as a fighter, but doesn't bother me too much, I would say. We could just say fighting though for purposes, for like ease purposes, I suppose. I think that would be
I think jiu-jitsu players are fighters.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just got your purple belt.
Yeah, I did actually.
That's mad. I'm so happy that happened today.
I know.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if I'll say like I was fully expecting it. I had like a small inkling though, like. So I got plans. I'm like competing on Sunday at a competition down in London, and then I got a message on Wednesday from my coach Sean in Nottingham, and he was just asking me like, just saying like, hey man, are you coming down Friday? Like Victor's gonna be there. Like he asked for you and a few other guys as well. And usually like you sort of know when you lean up to like a jiu-jitsu competition. It kind of depending on the day, but if it's Saturday or Sunday, you wouldn't really train past sort of Wednesday or Thursday. That'd be sort of your cut-off point, and just sort of, rest in the rest of the days. So I kind of thought he knows that. So I don't know whether he just, maybe because Victor's just visiting right now because he doesn't live here anymore. So it could just be for that. Like he wanted to see us and he wanted to go for like food afterwards. So I was like, yeah, cool. I wasn't planning to, but I'll come down for a bit. I won't train super hard, but just sort of get a little bit loose. And you just say like, yeah, that's great. So turned up today, and just normal session. Everything was going as sort of normal. Doing some drilling and stuff. And then near the end, like near the end of the class, like when we were doing one of our rounds, I seen him like he went downstairs and he came back up and he had like a black bag in his hand or something. And like I kind of thought like, what's that bag doing over there? And then like at the end of the round, he just sort of started speaking to us and just talking in general. And then like pulled out my belt and promoted me, and then promoted another one of my like training partners, Charlie, as well, to brown belt. So it was a really good day, like a good day for the gym overall, I'd say. And just chuffed, I suppose.
So who are your main coaches at the minute then? Because obviously I know you do train with Victor occasionally. Is that right?
Yeah. So now Victor's moved. He's moved to Portugal, so he lives there pretty much full time, like for different reasons. And now, like in terms of comp classes that I do in Nottingham, so I do 3 comp classes a week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings. And a coach there, Sean Coates, he heads up the classes. Really experienced guy. I think he's like medaled at like the World Championships, I think 3 times. Like a 7, maybe 8-time British champion. Competed throughout his coloured belts. Now he's a black belt. Like a really high level. He sort of heads the sessions now. And then, obviously in Coventry, we've got like James, who takes some of the no-gi classes. Raj takes some of the gi classes. So, just those sort of guys.
So you grew up in Coventry?
Yeah, born and bred.
What made you start training in Nottingham then?
So I think the main thing was when I moved to university. So, I can't even think of the year now. I think it was 2016-ish, 17, something like that. I moved to Nottingham Trent for uni, and I was living there for 3 years. And then I knew a gym there already. This was still when I was doing striking and more like MMA focused. So I started training at like a gym there, and I was there for a little bit. And then I think around that sort of uni time as well, like a few months in, then I started shifting my focus towards jiu-jitsu a little bit more. So then with that, with Gracie Barra being it, like Gracie Barra Nottingham being there, and I'd heard about it before anyway, like Victor Estima, like one of the biggest names I'd say in jiu-jitsu, especially like in the UK as well. It was only sort of natural for me to like go and start training there as well. So yeah, that was it. And I suppose now as well, I'm living back in Coventry, but I think, like the ties and stuff I've made there over the years, it's just, it's good to keep that going as well. Like I really enjoy the training there. It's a really high level. All the guys there like compete and, are very successful on the highest stage. So yeah, it's, I try and get down there all the times I can.
Was Nottingham the first place you trained in then, or had you trained in Coventry before?
Yeah. So I trained in Coventry before. So, I mean, if you want me to run through the journey,
let's do it.
Yeah. So, I think I was about 12 when I started like karate. It was I say karate because it was kind of like a mixture of martial arts which I was doing. We had like our katas and our forms. We had like sparring, and then we had like other elements as well. Like maybe like a very small bit of like grappling we did there as well. So it was kind of like a combination, but predominantly you could say it was karate. I did that at a place in Coventry from when I was 12, and a year into that is when I started doing MMA as well, because they did MMA at the same gym. So I started picking that up as well when I was 13.
Which gym is this?
This is Atomic Black Belt Academy.
Okay.
So it was the same one that James was at.
Really?
James actually went there. I didn't find this out until I moved to Lions, but he said, yeah, he was there. I don't know for how long exactly, but obviously, made the switch as well. So then, yeah, I was there from when I was 12. I think I got my black belt when I think it was like 15 or something like that. And then I sort of dropped the karate side. I just stayed focused on MMA. And then when I was 16, like I had one of the first hybrid fights, was it?
Yeah.
The Sanchal fights.
So that would have been versus Johnny Gilbert.
That's the one, yeah.
From Impact. Have you been to Impact?
Yes, I have actually. I went once a couple of years ago because Vince runs it, right? Runs the jiu-jitsu. So I went for like an open mat on one of the Sundays.
Yeah, it's a nice gym. Anyway, so you had that.
Yeah, so I had that. That was like my first. I did like karate tournaments before that. The more traditional style, like points and like continuous sparring. They were the main things I was doing before, and that was going well. But I think I wanted to like try my hand at something different. So then I was looking at this, and I don't actually know how it fully came about, because I believe the guy that Johnny Gilbert was originally supposed to be fighting like pulled out or something like that, and I don't know if I just threw my name in the hat or something like that, but long story short, I ended up getting the fight against him. And what was really weird was that I'm sure I was like looking at his like Insta and stuff like that like slightly before, because I seen like he was doing quite well, like he did loads of like kickboxing and stuff before and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I sort of knew of him before, and I think I even remember saying in my head, like, I was like, damn, man, like, imagine fighting that guy, sort of thing. Like, I was sort of, I wouldn't say looking up to him, but it was just one of those that you looked at and thought, okay, like, he's doing quite well. So then, yeah, that fight got put together, and I was still training at the old gym Atomic at that time. And then, yeah, leading up to the fight, it was just a crazy experience, because it's nothing, even similar to like the other things I was doing with the karate tournaments. So that came about, and then yeah, just went into that fight. It was in Leicester as well, so it was where he was from. I remember that he brought like a lot of like supporters and stuff, and then it was literally like, I think it was just my family. Actually, a few of my mates came as well, probably like 4 or 5 of my mates as well, and like a couple guys from the gym, and that was it. And then he had like majority of the people there for him. So it was a really crazy sort of experience, and then to go through that and like, came out the other end quite well, like I won that fight, and yeah, it's just something I can always look back on and think, wow, like. So,
yeah, what was interesting about that fight was how already, even though you weren't yet like the jiu-jitsu guy you are now, you were just out grappling him.
Yeah.
That whole time.
Yeah. I don't know exactly like what was my game plan going in, because I knew obviously he was like more a kickboxer, a striker from what I'd seen. So I thought maybe because of the rule set, it might have been good to maybe take him down, wear him out. And I suppose that did work out in the end. But yeah, like it was, I do remember the fight being quite tough. Like he was hitting me with good shots, and like he obviously had really good kicks as well because he was quite like tall and lanky,
Yes.
similar to me as well. I think he was even taller than
He
me,
was,
maybe.
yeah.
I can't remember exactly, but yeah, it was definitely similar height, if not taller. So yeah, we had that going, and then I think ended up being the third round that I beat him. I think it just wore on him after a while. Like I took him down, and he was getting sort of fatigued and
Yeah,
kind
his shoulder. He had some sort of issue with his shoulder,
Mm.
and the referee stopped it, which I thought was weird. But if it's an amateur fight, then maybe.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. Like, again, I haven't actually watched it in a while, so I don't know if it was like from a takedown or maybe it was going in. He might have had a shoulder issue, or even him throwing a punch or something. It could have been any of that. But I think either way, like, I'm happy to sort of be in that position, and I don't think it was anything bad. But yeah,
It was definitely good, for what was sort of preparation for MMA for you. Having seen the fight, like you, as I say, you very much like dominated him in terms of grappling. Even your second fight, same thing happened. You were top position, took him down. There was, in fact, in the second fight, there was a bit of ground and pound. I think you got told off for, which was it was funny. It was definitely good preparation for you at the time.
yeah.
So talk to me. Obviously, so that fight, the first fight was in 2014. It was Saturday, the 4th of October.
Wow.
At 88 kilos,
Yeah.
which is insane because I'm 24 and I'm nowhere near that still. But then within the space of a year, you were fighting out of Lions.
Mm-hmm.
What made you transition from Atomic to Lions?
So I think the big thing, especially coming out of that fight, was just, I think, like, obviously with all due respect, like where I trained before at Atomic and things like that, I almost just felt like going into that fight, I kind of felt like I needed maybe more support from like coaches in particular, because I had support from like my training partners. They were all there, they were in my corner coaching me and things. But I feel like maybe the focus was more for them. It was more on like the traditional sort of karate side and less so this side. Which is sort of understandable. I'm sure they've been successful before doing that. Teaching like the karate route and getting people to compete down that way. But I think just from me at my stage then, I almost felt like that wasn't the way I was going. Like I said, I got my black belt in it, and then I stopped really training in karate, and my focus was more on MMA at that point. So I think at that stage, I just felt like I needed like a new change, and I was looking around a little bit, and I think the decision was quite easy though, because I'd heard it from other people before, like even friends and like friends of my dad's and all that sort of stuff. They'd all said like, Lions Gym, they'd heard about it, that some of them had trained there or whatnot, like that's the gym to go to. And, that's where like, you can advance from there. And I thought, okay, cool, I'll give it a try. So, I think, was I around 16 at that point? I can't remember the exact, it
would have been between 2014 and 2015.
Yeah, so shortly after that fight, I made the transition to Lions, and I suppose never looked back really. It was definitely a good move.
Are you still in contact with any of the guys from Atomic?
Not too much, no. Some of them I have on Facebook and things like that. What's funny enough as well is that some of the guys, I think they still train maybe at different gyms. They've like reached out to me a little bit as well and just sort of seen me, doing like jiu-jitsu now, and they've reached out to me a little bit. So again, speaking a little bit, maybe catch up with the guys soon. Like I have no like bad feelings or like ill will towards any of them, because they're all sound guys, and I always have to say like, the stage I'm at now, maybe I wouldn't have been there if I didn't go through that route. So again, I thank all of them.
Yeah, I mean, you wanted different things.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's it.
Yeah, pretty much.
So you moved to Lions to pursue MMA. What was it like coming into Lions at the time? Because it's a very different gym.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have been a year before I even started at Lions.
Yeah. So looking back on it now, I mean, I think I did sort of start around, I can't remember. It's been about 7 odd years, 8 odd years, something like that. Of course it was completely different then. Even just looking at it now when you walk in, like it looks different when you go in. Like it was it was kind of like surreal a little bit because once you walked in, I kind of felt like, okay, like this is like a different sort of atmosphere. It kind of feels a bit more like, you know, I suppose with the gym before they were more, they had a large like a base for like children and younger teens and stuff like that. Whereas here it felt a bit more like adult like I would say. A lot more like adults and people like that training there. So like it wasn't necessarily a bad thing either. I kind of felt like I had to find my feet to start with, because I remember my first class was a MMA class with Jimmy actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was a Thursday night. I don't remember the day or the year, but it was a Thursday night. Did MMA class with Jimmy, and even the way the class ran and stuff, it was completely different to what I'd done before. So,
How so?
I just think in general, like I suppose before we have like a very traditional warm up when we do like a karate or even the MMA there. You have like your standard warm up. Jimmy's is quite like, I don't know how to say it. It's just his style of teaching and like a different approach, just something that I'd never really had before. So yeah, like just coming into the class and some of the technique I learned, it was really like interesting to see, and I could just tell it was like developing my game straight away because it was the classes I kept coming back to as well. He was the first class, but also I remember at the time when I started, I knew Sonny Hero was kickboxing there, like the kickboxing coach. So, and he was someone I'd heard about before. Like I knew, like I'd heard of his trainer as well in Birmingham, and I knew he was like a big name, like kickboxing and stuff like that. So he was like definitely a class I wanted to do. And yeah, like I think I built like a good relationship with him, and even all the other coaches as well. Like Jimmy, and I wasn't doing like gi jiu-jitsu, so I didn't really like focus on that too much at the time. But like Jimmy, Andre, Sonny, all these guys, like I was able to slowly build like a good relationship with. I'd say.
How many sessions a week were you doing with Lions?
God, it's actually hard to say. I think I was doing like all the kickboxing ones, the MMA ones. I think that was it at the time. So basically, pretty much all of them outside of like gi jiu-jitsu. I was doing like a bit of no gi, I think, as well. But I think at that time my primary focus was sort of like the kickboxing / like the MMA. So yeah, like I can't put a number on it, but it was still quite a lot, I'd say.
Yeah. So how long were you doing that for then? Did you do that leading up to you leaving for uni?
Yeah. So pretty much leading up to uni, it was exactly the same. Like I was doing the kickboxing, I was doing the MMA. That was my focus, I'd say. And like over time, gi jiu-jitsu I sort of started like it was one of those that I started as kind of like we'll just try it out, see how it is. Like I bought a gi, like I paid the money, I bought a gi. I was like, we'll just give it a try and see what happens.
Controversial question.
Yeah.
What brand gi was it?
It was a Gracie Barra gi.
Oh.
It was from the gym. It was a GB gi. It was I can't even remember what it was. I think it was the Pro Light era or something. So like a fairly old model now.
Yeah.
But at the time it was like brand new gi. The pricing hasn't really changed. So it was quite expensive, and it was just one of those I'd just try out. And then closer to when I was starting uni, I'd do the gi a little bit more because when I started it was probably only like one class every week, one class every 2 weeks. So I was really in and out. And
did you just not enjoy the gi at the time?
No, I wouldn't say it was a matter of not enjoying it. It's just when I was like focusing on the other things as well. Like for example, I think the structure was pretty similar. Whereas like you had your striking class before your gi class, and some nights where you're sparring and stuff, you just knackered at, and then you got to do a gi class after that. It can be quite difficult. So again, I think at that point my head was still focused on like kickboxing and MMA, and of course at that time I was doing like no gi through the MMA as well. But gi jiu-jitsu was just again slowly being incorporated. Like I didn't dislike it, but I didn't like. It wasn't one of those I just dropped everything for at that stage. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
So what made you? In fact, before we get onto that, what was your motivation for MMA? Like, what was your first memory of it, and what made you want to do it?
I don't know. I think that is a hard question, actually. I always think on reflection, like I actually don't know like a specific point. I always know like say for even when I started karate, like my cousins, they have a gym in Canada. They do like boxing and kickboxing, and some of the guys did like MMA and things like that.
I think I ran into that
Yeah.
in my research.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So they have a gym there. They've had it, for years, and like my cousins, they're like similar age as me as well, and they've been training since they were like even younger, like since they were like kids, and like my dad would always talk about them, and like the rest of the family as well, and just we'd always see like how well they're doing and stuff, and I think it was always quite like motivating to know like you had that like sort of I don't want to say like lineage because it's not kind of like that, but you had family like on the other side of the planet who were like committed to something and like really focused, and especially like I'd even take this back to when I was like when I started the martial arts. Like I think at that stage I was just quite unsure, and I was sort of not really doing much of myself like outside of school, and perhaps like hanging around with the wrong types of people as well. So I think I wasn't I was probably going down like a a not very beneficial path, and I think when I started martial arts, because of that, it like really sort of channeled my energy, channeled my focus. And then I remember my dad saying as well, like, if you get a black belt in karate, I'll take you on a flight to Canada and you like go meet them all and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, that's good enough for me, like it's a good enough incentive. So I think in terms of like training as a whole, that has sort of been like what's motivated me. And I suppose, like I said as well, even training at the old place Atomic when they started their MMA and stuff, I think just really getting into it there really sort of like motivated me a bit. Like it just gave me fuel, I'd say. Like even within school and like outside of training itself, like I felt maybe like a more confident like teenager growing up and stuff. So seeing, I think when people like knew as well, like, oh, like he does like MMA and things like that, like it almost put me in a position that I hadn't been in before, where I was like, people like almost gave me a little bit of respect out of that. Because I think before that, I was just sort of like a kid that people could just sort of, take the mick out of, really.
Were you particularly successful in competitions in terms of karate?
Yeah, I would say so. Like I've won certain trophies and won fights. Not won all of them. Been beaten as well, but I had some success there as well. I still have trophies at home.
Because it's really interesting that obviously within the gym, not that it's necessarily a competition, but you know who the good people are, and you know who the people who try their best are, and who the assholes are. But it's like to the outside world, I've noticed this. Just the fact that you're committed to training on a regular basis, no matter who you are. Like people see that, people recognize that. So I feel like there is, and I don't think it's ever asked for, but there is that respect that you get from just training and just wanting to make yourself better. And and I think it happens in a lot of different disciplines as well, not just martial arts, but definitely martial arts, because it's fighting is recognized like that. So what made you, I mean, what were your earliest memories of MMA then? Did you watch any MMA growing up?
I would say like I do remember in terms of watching like UFC, guys like sort of George St. Pierre and Anderson Silva, that sort of era was the era I got involved in it. I think the first like video I seen was around like that UFC sort of, I think like 117 time where Chael Sonnen fought Anderson Silva.
Oh wow!
Yeah, around that sort of time, like
that's yeah.
I remember that very very like very like vividly almost. Like it was I was like, who's this guy, man, just chatting all this like shit. And I came through I used to watch like wrestling as a kid and stuff like that, like WWE, all that sort of stuff, and I sort of turned away from it as you grow up and stuff. And
Never.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know if I should be saying this, but I've been watching a little bit more nowadays, like AEW and things like that.
Buddy.
Yeah, so I keep my eye on that.
There's a few of us in the gym. We're gonna have to make a WhatsApp group.
Yeah, it is quite interesting now. I'm like at a different stage of my life, but yeah, at that sort of stage for MMA, like it was the GSPs, the Anderson Silvas. I think I remember watching GSP. Who did he fight? I don't know if it was Dan Hardy, or who did he fight after Dan Hardy?
Oh, this is way
channeling your
before my
memory
time.
now. Oh no.
GSP.
I think he fought Hardy at like, is it 111? UFC 111?
We're about to find out. So he fought Dan Hardy at 111.
Bang.
Then he fought Josh Koscheck.
That was it, yeah, Josh Koscheck. Because I remember watching The Ultimate Fighter that season as well. So it was around that sort of time. I think almost like I'd seen all these things like, you know, maybe like simultaneously, and it just got me like hooked on it as well. Especially since I was doing it too.
Yeah.
At that stage, like it was really cool to see, and just watching videos of them training and just their attitude outside of training as well, just like everyday life. It got me hooked on it, you know. And I kind of wanted to like replicate it.
So I need to stick on this. People that don't like wrestling,
Oh,
skip ahead
yeah.
30 seconds. I swear, I will not go on about it. What has made you interested in AEW?
Okay, so I don't know if people do this, yeah, but you know, like late night before you go to bed, you're on your phone, you're on YouTube, and you have like a YouTube session. So you just have like, now this can be anything. It can be 10 minutes, it can be half an hour, and sometimes it can be like 2 hours, right? Where you just start scrolling through random videos on your suggested, and it's like, oh, okay, cool, I'll watch another, oh, okay, like, and you go on and on.
Yeah.
So that came up with wrestling sometimes. I've had it before, like the old, because I really love like the sort of, the noughties of wrestling, you know, 2000, 2010. Like that was like
Ruthless aggression.
Yeah. That was my sort of like, like childhood almost. I love that sort of time. And obviously now like things have become a bit more boring, like PG and things like that. The storylines are kind of same old. So it kind of put me. And I think when I was a kid and you find out like wrestling's fake, it's like, oh well, what's the point then? You know, like it's
Not
all
me.
fixed. Yeah, a lot of people.
Yeah.
Were kind of like put off by that. I'd probably say myself included as well. But now I don't know. Like I just feel you got to respect wrestling for what it is, right? Like it's not trying to be no MMA or you know anything like that. I think you just respect it for you know what it is, and it's just trying to it's like, as they say, sports entertainment. Like it's it is, you know, it's kind of fascinating to see sometimes, you know, like the way these guys are, you know, if they're like faces one week or they're heels the next week, and you know what AEW are doing as well. So it's pretty cool. Like I see some of the videos, especially now, they're attracting like loads of big talent. You know, obviously CM Punk just came back, and you know all these guys. What's his name? Bryan Danielson.
Yeah,
crazy man. It's good to see. You know, it's like healthy competition. I think. You know, WWE's probably been in like a class of its own for so long. It is good to have. You know.
I mean,
maybe better competition.
I mean, we were too young for the Monday Night Wars, so it's really cool to see.
Again, I've watched stuff on that as well, like before, like Attitude Era and things like that. Man,
We will come back to this on a future episode, and I will title it appropriately.
Yeah.
What made you decide that jiu-jitsu was where you wanted to go and not MMA?
So, I'd probably say this decision came around. So when I moved to uni again, I was still doing my striking and MMA, and at this point, the like gi jiu-jitsu was definitely becoming a lot more, you know, like more of an interest with me. Again, I was mixing it all up, especially, and then studying as well. And I think it just got to a point where I was just almost becoming like overwhelmed by like training everything, because you know, like if I do jiu-jitsu, I don't want to do it how like when I started it, where I'm literally doing one session every 2 weeks, or like just literally popping in now and again. And I realize that now, especially, you know, with like training so much, it's like, man, if I literally train like once every 2 weeks, man, my development is going to be so slow, like in that, you know, particular area, if I'm just training that much. And especially since I started uni, I felt like, you know, the workload was kind of increasing a bit as well, and I just thought, I'm just not going to have time to balance all these different areas out, you know, like we're talking no gi jiu-jitsu, like MMA, like Muay Thai, you know, all these, and then like, you know, lifting if you want to lift as well, all these sorts of things, trying to get the sessions in. So I think I just came to a decision. I think it was around like the turn of the new year. Can't remember what year it was now. God. I think the new year of around first year, where I sort of came to a realization like, all right, I need to really decide, like, do I want to continue to go down MMA and like striking, or do I want to start focusing on like jiu-jitsu? Because I just felt in my head I didn't have time for both, and I think in the end I just came to jiu-jitsu. That was my sort of conclusion. I it was very difficult, I really I wasn't too sure here and there, but I think one big thing that swayed me, and I'll be dead honest about it, is just like hard sparring in MMA and like striking especially, man. It's just like it's not something I want going forward in the long term, especially like studying as well. I don't want my brain to like not be functional, in 10 or 20 years time and things like that. And that is how it would be, because I'm not just one of those who would do like MMA or do like striking in general. I wouldn't just do that till like uni finishes and that's it. I'm just gonna fuck off and get a full-time job. Like, this is something that I've been doing now since I was in school. It's really like been a part of my life, and I think I understood that from when I started uni as well. Like, a lot of the uni students, they tend to go out and they party quite a lot, and a couple times a week and stuff. And I just could kind of see at that point that wasn't the route I wanted to take. Of course I'd go out and I'd like party and things, but it was never that I'd sacrifice like training or anything for it. So yeah. I just sort of thought, okay, I need to really like focus in on jiu-jitsu now, and yeah, that was sort of my thought process.
Yeah, when I was at uni, for the most part, obviously I wasn't training as nearly as heavily as you, but like I definitely enjoyed going to training way more than going out. And like, I mean, to be fair, training finishes at like 9:30 at the latest. If you really wanted to go for a beer afterwards, you can. But after training, I always kind of feel like I'm happy. I feel healthy. Like, it's the concussion thing is real.
Yeah.
I remember when we were training at Champs at Silverback.
Yeah.
I was coaching gymnastics, and I thought it was from sparring, but I worked out later that I was doing backwards rolls wrong. And I've got a big head.
Really?
And I was basically just, even on like the gymnastics floor, smacking my head every time that I showed a backwards roll to the kids. And so I got like 2 concussions in a row. Like, and I only realized that because like there were times when I'd just like, I wouldn't know where I was. I'd be really confused. I wouldn't know who I was talking to. I'd feel sick randomly. And so I stopped training for a while, and it was just for a few weeks. I think it was like 6 weeks at a time. But I took it very seriously. I told Champ about it one morning at Strength and Conditioning. And he's like, the problem is, going back to the wrestling, like he's a massive wrestling fan. We have seen enough shit happen, whether it's Bryan Danielson, Chris Benoit, even people who like died of other things like Eddie Guerrero. Like we've seen enough of that to be scared shitless of concussions. And it's something that and I know that especially given events recently, not with him, but with other people, James is also very, very aware of the concussions thing. So I definitely, I see where that was a concern. Yeah. I also know, do you remember Gus? He got his purple belt while he was here, but he came in as blue belt for university.
Maybe by like face or something.
Okay, he's a sort of big, tall guy. He sort of not shaved head but short hair. He used to train MMA in his hometown, and basically the sparring was effectively just a fight, and he stopped.
Yeah,
anyway, completely. And it sucks because I've seen him do pads, and I've seen you do pads, and both of you are really fucking good. Yeah. But like, I very much see that with jiu-jitsu as well. I see like the appeal of not dying after every session.
Yeah. And I mean, of course, that isn't to say like jiu-jitsu doesn't come with its own risks. I mean, injuries are so like prevalent in the sport as well.
Knees are the big one.
Even that as well. Yeah, you can get caught. You can get like maybe concussed even on a bad situation. I do think it would it can be something you can maybe manage a bit more, whereas perhaps sparring isn't, like striking sparring. Like I've even had it before, like you were saying, hard sparring sessions, and you just come home and like your head's a bit fuzzy, and you just kind of like, you're not sort of with it almost, and that's not something you want, especially at my age.
No.
At that point when I was literally like, 18, 19, 20, I didn't really want that going forward, because okay, I might be able to sort of handle it at that age, but you know, when I'm in my 30s, in my 40s, and you know, I have like a family and stuff, I don't want these things to be like
Yeah.
reoccurring.
No, we don't really know enough about CTE. Is the thing. We don't know like the actual long term impacts of it, and all the evidence so far suggests that it's not a good thing.
No.
Um,
I mean, you see it in like a NFL and things like that.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
they were saying. I
Yeah.
mean, what the average sort of time they play is what, like 4 years or something, 5 years, like
Yeah.
an NFL career. Like, I mean, that goes to say something, you know. Like,
we're really lucky, and I honestly think it's because of the gloves that more people haven't died in MMA. You see it in boxing like every other week.
yeah, I've seen some sad stuff, man.
Yeah.
Really sad things.
It's horrific. So you transitioned over to jiu-jitsu, training between Nottingham and Cov, and I think you also train at GB Birmingham.
Yeah, so when I started jiu-jitsu, are you talking, or like sort of more now, would you say?
Just take us through it.
Yeah, so when I started, I'm trying to think the exact time. I think when my sole focus was on jiu-jitsu, I'd kind of transitioned and I was training primarily at like Gracie Barra Nottingham. I was still in uni, I was staying there as well full time. Only really coming home on the weekend, so there wasn't much time for me to train like in Coventry at Lions. But you know, that was the focus. I was training there, and I sort of seen my like, it was kind of weird really. I seen my sort of level grow quite quickly. And then once I moved back, then I was training more between Coventry and Nottingham. You know, training at Lions quite a lot. Again, no-gi, Yangi, this was. And then going up to Nottingham as well. Because I'd probably say a couple months into when I was training in Nottingham, I then started attending like the competition sessions. Because I think I went in, I was like maybe like a 2-stripe white belt, if that. I think I was a 2-stripe because I couldn't even do the advanced classes yet because you had to be a 3-stripe white belt to do it. So I remember I did like the GB1 classes, and I think very quickly after that I got my 3rd stripe. I was doing the advanced classes, and yeah, I was like, you know, kind of fitting in there as well, getting used to that. Different type of training as well, you know, different type of, I think a different kind of tax on your body. Like, it's hard to say. You kind of feel it sometimes. Even say there's differences between training gi and no gi. So there's, you know, probably more of a difference training striking to grappling. So yeah, I think I was just, you know, adjusting, getting used to that, and then I started competing as well, whilst I was at GB Nottingham. And then yeah, I think that went well, and yeah, you know, now I just mix it up in between. I go to Birmingham a little bit as well now, so whether it be like sometimes the guys from GB Notts will travel down to GB Birmingham, and sometimes some of the guys from Birmingham come up to Nottingham, so we sort of like cross train a little bit. So, you know, that's you know, another good way to train.
Yeah, it's really cool to see.
Definitely.
So would you say that Nottingham is like your home base?
Nottingham and Coventry, you
Yeah.
know, Lions Gym and GB Notts, I'd say. Like, I place just as much importance on, you know, both of them. So, yeah.
I feel like I just asked quite a polarizing question. like I didn't mean for it to be. I was.
No. I get you. I think some people ask me that as well, but yeah, both the places, you know, like I wouldn't be where I am without both of them.
Yeah.
You know, so
No, I get you
I
100%.
think that's understandable.
Because I mean, this is something that I found that James has been really cool about from the start. Is when I wanted to try going and train in this place, or if I wanted to go to a session here, he would always encourage, like for the most part, training with as many people as you could. You know, learning from as many people as you could. I think I've only once seen him say, "Don't train there" to like someone, and I think that was more of a political thing than anything else. But
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, there is quite a bit of it in, I think, combat sports in general, really, like, not just like, say, jiu-jitsu or striking. It's just sort of one of them you got to try and avoid where you can, right? So
yeah. So you train, what do you do, what, 50-50 gi, no gi?
I'd probably say I train more in the gi. You know, funnily enough, compete more in the gi as well. But I still train in no gi as well. Like when I was in Nottingham, the sessions that they were doing, so the competition sessions would mainly, kind of depending on the year, would be like 2 gi sessions and 1 gi, no gi session a week. I think leading up to certain competitions, like towards the end of the year when it's like no gi worlds and stuff, they'd flip that around. It'd be 2 no-gi and 1 gi session. And then in the evening classes, it would be, I think, no-gi on Wednesday nights, and then gi Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So I think just naturally, I was training more in the gi anyway. Coming back to Coventry though, obviously Lions Gym, like they've got no-gi and they've got MMA classes which have no-gi in as well. They've got like wrestling classes too. So there's quite a bit more like variety in that sense. So I could say my training's a bit more balanced in that way, but I'd say more recently it has been more tailored towards gi. I think because because my I didn't just break it or anything. I think because my competitions are like more leaning towards gi, what I've been competing in. But I'm open to training in both, and competing in both as well. So yeah.
Again, not supposed to be a triggering question.
Okay.
Which do you prefer?
I go through phases. I would say like. I can't come out and definitively say I prefer gi, I prefer no gi. I do go through phases where I like training no gi more than gi, or vice versa. Like I think if a gun was to my head and said like you can't compete in one anymore, I'd compete in gi and I'd focus on gi. But again, I try not to like discount my no gi either, because I think both of them are good, and I'm good enough in both as well. So
yeah, for sure.
Also,
yeah. I worked it out the other day. I don't hate gi.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is good.
Thank you.
No, it's what I hate is when and apparently referees stop this. Although I've never competed in the gi, so I wouldn't know. When like your foot gets caught in the jacket, or like or like for me the worst thing is, so in no gi I do like front headlock stuff. So I like an Americana. I've started because Alicia has a really good Peruvian. I've started adding a Peruvian in when I can.
Yeah.
But like when I go to put my hand through, my hand gets caught inside the collar. Yeah. That's the stuff that I fucking hate. But actually, when I'm playing with the grips and like, and even if it's not necessarily working well for me, even if I'm like defending, I really enjoy sort of the added sort of puzzle element of it.
Yeah. That's good. Like I told you, there is differences between gi and no gi. Like you can't just take like a one approach for all of it. Like have like one game for it all. You especially see that at like competition level as well. Guys who play one style in gi will play a different style in no gi. And it is adaptable though as well. Like one thing I was using a lot, like coming up when I was doing like even MMA stuff, was like using like butterfly sweeps.
Yes.
So that's something I do even in the gi as well. You can still do that. Slightly different sometimes, maybe different grips, but that thankfully is something that can convert over. But as well, don't think of it as like a burden having the gi on, that everything's trapped, because whilst you might struggle to do your Peruvian neckties and things like that, I mean, other opportunities are there. Like you have like clock chokes, loop chokes, obviously your collar chokes as well. Like there's a few more weapons in the arsenal for you to use.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy when I get something with the gi. Like, do you know what? When I see Abby like do her like just her collar choke from guard, and I see that and I'm just like, that looks so convenient. Like it's just
exactly. Sometimes perhaps easier, I would say. A collar choke from guard in a sense. It's it can be a bit easier to get, I would say, than maybe other things, but. Yeah, man, it is fun. I think you'll slowly keep growing, maybe gravitating towards gi.
I'm never going to be a purist.
No,
that's for sure.
That's fine. I don't think there's many like straight gi purists. I mean, there is one or two in the gym who just focus on gi, but I mean, in terms of like the gym and who's around, most people sort of train both, I would say, which is good. They have confidence to train in both.
I understand recovery is a real thing, but what Raj was saying the other day about if you like just try not to have that mentality of, I only do gi, or I only do no gi. They're at different times. Like you can do both.
Yes.
It's the same as when people like James would always tell the MMA guys, if there's a session on, you should go to that session. Because you're learning, you're training. And that's better than not learning or training. I
know. I mean, I think for some people as well, a lot of guys are working full time who work on certain shifts. So perhaps, we've had the gi classes change a little bit since lockdowns ended, where sometimes it's been a 6, sometimes 7, sometimes 8 starts, which will suit certain people and it might not suit others. So I think that's part of it as well. Perhaps some people might just be trying to, work their training around work as well, which is understandable. Just come to what you can come to,
Yeah.
and if you're tired and stuff, we're all tired. Keep training.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your accomplishments in jiu-jitsu, because this irritates me,
Yeah.
and I want to get onto it. There are, like, if you're an MMA fighter or a kickboxer, all your shit is probably online somewhere.
Yeah.
Whereas I was looking for like rankings or tournament results or anything like that from you,
Yeah.
and the best resource that wasn't your Instagram account
Yeah.
was like only updated in 2019.
Yeah.
Which, okay, we've had a
Yeah.
pandemic,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like, what? So talk about your results. Like, what are some accomplishments that you're really proud of in terms of jiu-jitsu? This is the point where you're like, oh, I have to talk about myself.
Yeah,
Like,
this was like the coming in. This was like the one thing I wish he did. Like he didn't have to ask me. I wish he would rather say himself.
yeah, but I don't know.
Okay, so, gosh, like some of my major accomplishments, like IBJJF Europeans, I won that, back in 2018. British, so, sorry, if someone says like they're a British champion as well, that can also have maybe different meanings, because there's different kinds of competitions as well. So like, for example, you have like the British Open, you have like IBJJF British Nationals, you've got like the UAE British Nationals as well. All three are like very, very big competitions. Like IBJJF, like, well, AJP now, it was UAE, like back when I competed for them. All have like very high prestige. Like they're the, as a competitor, those would be the competitions you look for, across the calendar and things like that. So, if you win that, you can, I suppose when you win that, you could kind of say like British champion, or I would just say, like won the British Open once this year, and then won the UAE British Nationals, like double golded that. So maybe 3-time British champion. I don't know. However you want to say it. Like, so yeah, 3 gold medals across there, and then like I've medaled at like IBJJF British Nationals, medaled at multiple IBJJF comps as well. So like Spanish Nationals, like London Winter, London Fall, medaled at them as well. Again, numerous like gold medals, I suppose, like smaller comps like Nottingham Open and different things like that, AJP Croatia Pro. So many competitions throughout the years, it's kind of hard to keep track. And it is interesting you say that about how like records aren't really stated online very clearly. There is a site, Smooth Comp, they try to track records across the competitions they have on their website, but it's not all of them. Certain comps like BJJ British Open, they have their own like website, and they don't really track the records like for the long run. But yeah, like I suppose over the years I've just sort of been racking up experience at events, numerous types of events across the world as well. Like I've competed in England, I've competed in Spain, Portugal, Croatia, Canada, America. Like
That's insane.
Yeah, it is. When I look back on it and I think like that, like wow, I have sort of racked up quite a bit of time on the mats. So
do you enjoy competing often?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I think everybody has like nerves and like always kind of a little bit funny leading up to a comp. Like even like now, like I'm competing on Sunday, and you kind of feel a bit like, oh, like I think it's just the sense of unknown. But when I'm there, I do feel like there is nowhere I'd rather be. Like I know I'm in the right place, almost like right place at the right time. I really love the experience of it all as well. Again, totally different to like you sort of like being in a ring where you're like in a fight in that way. Being on the mats is definitely a different experience when you're competing, but definitely enjoying it a lot more, especially since the lockdowns ended as well. Such a big break that was, we're talking like over a year and a few months that I hadn't competed. So such a long break, it was, quite questionable of me. Like I was questioning a little bit as well. Like if I still got it, is it like, what's it going to be like? But it's good. I've still got the fire, which is good.
How much were you able to train during the pandemic?
Well, straight jiu-jitsu. I was struggling at times for sure. Like especially when it all shit hit the fan like March last year. Everything was pretty much shut. I was pretty much just doing like home workouts, like Silverback. I was working with him at the time, and he like lent me literally like lent me a kettlebell and I think like a resistance band, and was just giving me like home workouts, like daily home workouts. So I was just getting through them pretty much every day. Which I do have to thank him for because
Yeah, he did the same for Jack.
yeah,
Yeah,
it did really help me because I think without that I don't really know how consistent I would be because you can always say to yourself, yeah, like I'm gonna just do this every day sort of thing. But I almost feel like when it's kind of put on you a bit more and it's like, okay, you have to do this today, you have to do this tomorrow, like this is your workout for the next day. It definitely kept me focused in that way, and even if it was only once a day, like I was just at least doing something, keeping my body sort of ticking over. And it wasn't until like maybe like the end of summer that I started training again. One of my friends in Nottingham, he had literally had like a warehouse, and he just put some mats down, and we just started training there a little bit. It was, a couple times a week I was able to get down, because I don't think you're allowed to travel at that point. So
No.
I was just trying to get down where I can, kind of trying to trying to build it back up a little bit. But yeah, that was sort of the start of it, and then it had been so like it sort of fluctuated as well because you had another lockdown
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
and I caught COVID as well in January too. Well, my whole house did pretty much, and I had to sort of stay on the sort of down low then, just not really doing much training again. Um, but then yeah, like thankfully the bubble sessions helped when the gym started opening back up, especially more towards the start of this year. I was able to train like in a bubble with a Kaz,
Yes.
Indian Kaz. Yeah, I was able to train with him, so that was good. Definitely, definitely helped me.
So you basically did strength and conditioning for like, what, quarter of a year, third of a year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, good part of
Um,
it, yeah, for
do,
sure.
do you find strength and conditioning easy to do yourself? Like, do you enjoy it? I think
Uh,
because I feel like someone like me, I find it almost impossible to
hmm,
motivate myself. Not I hate motivate, but to get myself to do any strength and conditioning.
hmm,
Like if someone else is there, I don't find it that bad.
hmm,
But I see people alone in the gym
yeah,
all the time, and
yeah,
I'm like, I do not. I've done it,
hmm,
but I do not understand. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's yeah, they are different experiences doing it yourself compared to doing it in a group. That's one thing I really liked when I started like lifting with Champ and stuff. Is when I started, we were doing like small group sessions. It was like, like maybe James, Melissa, Jack, like myself. Um, just doing sessions early in the morning. I didn't like the morning, like I
no,
did not
no.
like lifting in the morning, but I just felt like sometimes you have to get up at like 5 o'clock or something for the sessions, and I would only do that because I just felt like I had like a sense or like a purpose, and there was other people, like other like-minded people there as well who were there to like help push me. But now I've started lifting more by myself. Like I'm on a program with like Informed Performance. Rob and MJ who like train over in Nottingham. They like work with like British athletics team in Loughborough Uni and stuff as well. So like obviously they know what they're talking about, and they've put me like a program together that I just go and I do myself. Which again, it sort of keeps me focused, so I don't just sort of veer off and think, okay, I can sort of have an easy day today and just like lift one or two things. But I know like, okay, on this day I have to I have to do this, on this day I have to do that. Like it's it is good. I do like lifting with people though. I think when I'm by myself it can be more challenging. You can sort of slack off a bit, but being on this program has helped for sure. It's given me a sense of direction, I'd say.
Do you do a lot of open mat?
um Not tons, no. No, I would say a lot of my training does revolve around classes, whether it be like a comp style class or like just your standard evening classes. Yeah, I wouldn't do as much open mat, but like the style of the comp class, we do get times to like drill our own techniques and things like that. At like pretty much every comp class, which is good. Um, but yeah, I don't do much open mat myself, no.
So do you feel like you benefit specifically from being in a class? Well,
Um,
obviously everyone does,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. I think so. For sure. Like I think over the years, like, of course, there's tons of technique that I've learned that was just, so slowly sort of gone out of my brain and I've forgot over time. But there's definitely been techniques that have just stuck with me. And the one thing that I liked, especially like when I was training in Nottingham, like at the time, there was a lot of different like professors, like Gareth and Victor, like sort of alternating the classes sometimes, and they'd be maybe teaching a similar position, say it'd be like side control top or like, attacks from guard and things like that, but they'd have their own twist on it. Even like I remember Sean as well doing certain like slightly different things to what Gareth and Victor do. And I did kind of like that because it just kind of like shows you how jiu-jitsu can be adaptable. Like there isn't like a one size fits all approach. It can be, everybody's body type is different and, you might prefer certain things over others.
Yes.
So I think that is what's good. And with the evening classes as well, it's like at least you have like your sense of like, you have your direction in that as well. Like, there may be certain areas which you may need to tweak to your body type. Like if you've got slightly longer arms, you might need to, hold something here rather than here, or legs or whatever. But yeah, definitely I do enjoy the evening classes.
Have you competed in? So you've done a lot of IBJJF. Have you competed under any other rule sets?
I don't know. I think most of the comps I've done have been IBJJF. Oh, saying that, I've done like AJP, which is a slightly different rule set. It's pretty similar, like your standard, your 4 points and things like that. But the rule set is slightly different as well. Like like you have advantages and penalties. That is slightly different. So you don't get advantage points. You actually get 1 point now for advantages, which I do think is actually a much better way because like you get advantages for things like near guard passes, but you put all that work in and you get an advantage for that, which you could literally be on like the brink of passing someone's guard, like 90% there. You've expended so much energy just for them to recover a guard, and for you to just get an advantage is, I don't know. I think 1 point makes more sense in that way. So that rule set's slightly different, and you have to kind of adapt your game to that too. But no, nothing else in terms of that. No sub onlys or EBI rules or anything like that. Yeah.
Would you compete under those rules? So ADCC, Polaris,
Yeah.
EBI?
Yeah, I'd be open to that. I mean, like my training that I've done at comp training as well, it's been, ADCC rules and, all those sorts of things as well, longer rounds as well, not just your typical, like, IBJJF, 6 or whatever minute rounds. So, yeah, I would be open to it.
Yeah, I like longer rounds.
For sure.
Obviously, that makes competition organisation more difficult, but...
Yeah.
There's so many times when it's like, oh, if I just had 1 more minute.
The difficulty is, though, I think, like, jiu-jitsu as a spectator sport as it is quite, it's quite hard to engage with it. I think longer rounds, for the most part, doesn't benefit that either. Even at, like, a black belt level where you have, like, a 10-minute match, like, 10 minutes, man, is a long time, and... I can definitely talk about like gi positions as well, where you can just be stuck in a certain position, like a 50-50 with like lapels, and guys will literally be stuck there for the whole fight, like literally
because
8-9
there's no
minutes
sense
of
of
a fight.
urgency.
Yeah, and it's it's quite a safe position relatively, like, and you just get stuck there as well. Like you can't you can get subbed, I suppose, like, but it's quite difficult to get subbed from there. And people just end up, one person comes back on top, the other person comes back on top. So they literally end up getting like 2 points there, 2 points there. And that's how the fight goes. They don't stop it because they're not stalling. It might just be like, like a seesaw pretty much. So if that's going on for 10 minutes, it's not, I don't think, it's as enjoyable or as like, like fan friendly. So that's why I think, like AJP now, I think they do like 5 or 6 minute rounds across the board, so from white to black belt. That sort of thing I do think is a bit more engaging.
Did you think that encourages people to hunt for the sub more?
I would think so, yeah, because a lot of the time, if you're doing a 10-minute match, man, I mean, like, you're not gonna go balls to the wall for like the first 2 minutes, knowing you have that much longer left to go. At that level as well, it's such a high level that people, high level guys rarely sort of make gaping mistakes to which people capitalize on. So I do feel like I think a shorter round, it does sort of encourage it a bit more. Like if you've got like 1.5 minutes to go, 1 minute to go, and you're down by X amount of points, you are going to be pushing it a lot more. But rather than that gap being 8 minutes at the start, if it's only 2 or 3 minutes, I think it does encourage people to be more consistent throughout the match. So, yeah, I think so.
I was gonna make some sort of point. I can't remember what it was.
Left you speechless.
Yeah, no, I like that approach. But do you think jiu-jitsu? Do you watch a lot? This was the point I was gonna make. Do you watch jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, I watch. It kind of varies whether I watch it live or I watch it like after the day or something. Because a lot of the big events, especially like America. So
is that enjoyment or is it studying or is it both?
Probably a bit of everything. Like, sometimes like I watch people like friends compete there, so I watch a lot of that. And in doing that, because like it's sometimes it's coloured belt guys, you'll do a bit of studying as well. You'll think, okay, like this is what people do at blue belt, purple belt, brown belt. These are really high level guys. Sometimes it is just genuine like excitement. Like we had like Who's Number One championship last weekend. That was like a really good event. Loads of big brackets with big names in. You had I enjoyed it, but then at the same time it was kind of like the point I had before where it was like a really long round. Like you had one match in the final. I think they were 30-minute fights for the finals. And literally all 30 minutes were very like, it was a lot of not engaging, like a lot of kind of stalling, I would say, or just not willing to, commit to passing a guard, not willing to play a guard to expose something else. And that was going on for 30 minutes. They get warned by a referee for so long and they just still like just didn't really do much. So you have that side to it as well. But then I do try and watch guys that I am interested in. Like I do, keep up to date with them, and I watch some of their fights on like Flow Grappling. So
yeah, I think that's always going to be the problem with jiu-jitsu, and that's why it's not going to grow. It has room to grow, but not to the extent that a lot of jiu-jitsu players really want it to. Because a lot of matches just aren't interesting to watch because of that stalling, or whether you want to call it stalling or not.
Yeah.
There are very few people who are willing to sacrifice good positions in the chase of a submission, and that's understandable. But that doesn't make for a great spectator sport.
Yeah.
No, it's really interesting what you say about the short rounds, though.
Yeah.
Because instinctually you'd think you'd get more sub finishes with longer rounds, but actually people just get like tired and it ends up installing, and it's just just because there's a submission, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is an interesting match to watch. Yeah. Like I know even with the EBI stuff, the number of matches with people I don't give a shit about that I've skipped through, and it's been like, oh, it's a 10-minute draw. Then I'll go overtime and then skip to see if there's a sub in overtime. Just because there's a submission doesn't make it interesting.
I got a funny story on that actually. Like I heard it earlier from like Sean when he was telling me he went to, I think it was like America. This was a while ago, and it was like two really high level black belts, Gianni Grippo and Paulo Miao, I believe. Might have been Jao Miao, one of the Miao brothers. They were in like a no-gi, I think it was like a sub only, like no time limit fight or something like that. And they started going, and they were going for some time. Then it got to an hour. They went to an hour mark where there was no submission. And, like by that stage, it was literally like a bar apparently. Like people were just there. Obviously, it's a big fight, so a lot of people there watching and things. But everybody was just chatting like normal. And then it got to that point, and apparently then the organizer just said like, okay guys, time, like, we've reached the hour mark and there's been no decision, so we're gonna continue this at the next event. That's literally what they said, apparently.
No,
yeah, and people were booing and stuff. But an hour, they were going for an hour trying to like, hunt for a submission. Obviously they let them roll for that long. But I think at that stage as well, especially in Nogi, they're just like slipping around, like just not able to get anything off on each other. So yeah, it puts them both in a difficult position, I think. Like, you're there for that long, and I think you'd probably respect the other person as well, like knowing, okay, these are really two like really high level people. Like, it's if you're struggling to get it and you keep trying, and then an hour comes and just nothing happens, it's like, yeah, I don't really care who you are. You're not going to be fixated on a fight like that for that long. Like it's very hard to. So
Yeah, no, it just reminded me. And I had to Google which UFC it was, but Royce Gracie versus Ken Shamrock at UFC 5 when they went to a 36-minute.
Yeah.
I think it was a 30-minute draw, and then they went into overtime
Yeah.
for 5 minutes, and then they had another minute, and it was still a fucking draw. Like,
Crazy, man. Yeah, it's well, I suppose what improved that it was the fact that now UFC have 5-minute rounds.
Yeah.
So
Whoa.
yeah,
No, no.
I know there is argument. Okay, make it like pride rules or something. But
Tell you what I want to see.
know.
I'll tell you what I want to see.
if you're gonna tell me you want like no cage, you want a football field sort of
No,
thing,
fuck
I'm
that.
not
No,
here
no,
for
no,
it.
no,
I'm
fuck
not
that.
here
That's
for
dumb.
it.
No.
Okay.
No, but what's not dumb?
Yeah.
I don't want rounds. Why do we do like okay, have one round. Have one round. If you've got a 15-minute fight, make it one 15-minute round. Why? Because if there are submissions, like you don't get advantage points for being like for having a submission and someone being saved by the bell.
True.
So, and I understand that, okay, with the 10-point must system, like maybe you could see that as, I'll give that a 10-9 round. However, if someone, let's say, I don't know, someone has someone in a rear naked choke and the buzzer goes, the next round, the person that had the rear naked choke gets knocked out. It's like, okay, yes, that person got knocked out, but if they'd have been able to keep that choke on,
Then
they'd have won the fight. So I don't know why we do rounds.
it's a very
If you're gonna have submissions, like, are there any? I've not heard of any jiu-jitsu matches or competitions where you've got rounds like that. It's always one round, right?
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
Pretty much all the fights are one round.
Yeah,
Because they have to fight, like, most of the time they have to fight, like, multiple times as well. But, yeah.
I think it is just the spectator sport side of it.
Yeah,
Like, it makes it more understandable
Hmm.
coming from a boxing, because a lot of, like, the UFC casual fans come over from boxing.
And, of course, you can't have, like, boxing rounds where you're doing, like, 8 3-minute rounds of MMA or something like that, or, like, 10 or 12. It's that would be very problematic in its own.
Then again, if we're going to do rounds, I'm still waiting for, like, 7-round fights, 9-round fights, like because you see, okay, so I don't know how much MMA you do watch, but I'll watch like Shevchenko versus Nunes 2, which went to a 25-minute decision, like that. Okay, maybe it's not the most fan friendly thing, but that was a striking clinic.
It was, yeah,
and like I was like, I could watch these two fight forever.
yeah,
Holloway versus Calvin Kattar,
yeah.
like. I'm not going to say I wanted to see Calvin Kattar take any more
that's
punishment,
slightly different,
but that
right?
was so fun to watch.
But I suppose when you say that and you talk about fights that you just wish went a few extra rounds, there's probably certain fights that you wish, did we really need to see that? Did it need to be 5 rounds?
This is why, like, if we're going to do 5 rounds for main events, you could push a main event to 7 rounds.
Possibly. I mean, it's...
As long as it's a good main event, there'd have to be a reason for it.
Yeah. But then, I don't know, maybe it becomes a bit more difficult on the fighter then, because then you're going from, a 25-minute fight to, possibly 35, 40 minutes? I mean, it is difficult. I mean, like, and I do get what you mean about just sort of scrapping rounds as a whole and just having one long fight for, like, sort of 15 minutes or so. And then, yeah, you do bring the judging into question, because how would you judge that? Like, sometimes you find like a 5-minute period hard to judge because... Say for the first 2 minutes, you've had a guy outstriking another guy just slightly, landing maybe a couple more crisp shots and, just connecting with a bit more than the other guy. But then the last 3 minutes, guy double legs him, takes him down, passes, ends up in a dominant position, maybe lands a couple of strikes in the process. So which way do you go with that?
I mean, with one championship, they judge the whole fight, so the end of the fight matters.
Yeah, perhaps they could do that. Like, maybe if they kept the round system going, like, say 3 rounds, but as the rounds went on, possibly, they became, like, the judging became of more importance, because then you're talking about the end of a fight, where, like, the 3rd round, again, as it ends, if someone's on someone's back and the buzzer goes, I think we may know how that would... Yeah. So, that is another possibility, but I think until maybe that gets, like, tried, and... I don't know. Perhaps it's a risk as well, though. Like, a big company like UFC may not do that. They may not stretch outside that because they want, definitive answers, clear fights.
Not for a long time, anyway. Like, this. To be fair, the sport's still young. What are we, 26, 27 years in? Like, there's a lot of room to change. the unified rules aren't even unified. Most countries don't recognize like MMA as a sport, so we get all these different glove types, all these different like cage, what are they called, like sizes and shapes and stuff like that. So there's definitely room for it to grow. But to be fair, I'm a sadist when it comes to mixed martial arts. Like I've recently discovered Gamebred FC, which is Jorge Masvidal's bare knuckle MMA, and I love it.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, and the thing that Joe Rogan and Eddie Bravo said about there being more submissions, absolutely true. So many more submissions.
Maybe because without the glove then,
Yeah.
right? And the
Yeah,
padding.
it's huge.
Interesting.
Yeah, no.
I've never watched it myself. I'll have to give it a watch or so. One thing I do wish they changed. Doesn't matter if it's UFC or like anything. I mean, I know they've sort of tried it in one. They need to sort out the weight cutting. I mean,
Yeah.
because I think for a sport like that to really progress, and I mean, like you said, there hasn't been any major, like maybe one, I can't remember, like a major fatality or like a, anything like that because of weight cutting. But I think...
Sorry, when I hear the word fatality, I automatically think Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat.
Fatality.
Yeah. But there hasn't, like, to this point, there hasn't been, much real danger in that sense. I mean, of course you see the videos of people like struggling to make weight and things like that, but it just, if you break it down to its most simplest sort of form, the fact that people are literally dehydrating their body 24 hours before a cage fight is like insane.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I mean, they shouldn't be dehydrating their bodies at all. Like, full stop.
Yeah.
But you see, like, obviously, you see Cyborg, you see like Aspen Ladd, you see all these fighters. But to me, if you're gonna highlight one example of that was in the mainstream, it's Dillashaw. You look at Dillashaw going into that Cejudo fight, and like, to be fair, I still think it was an early stoppage, but he was not well. Like, even in the weigh-ins, and then even in the fight, he looked ill. Like, and if he hadn't, I mean, obviously, I'm not saying that he should have taken the EPO at all. I think he should just not have gone down.
Definitely not.
But if he feels like he has to do that to make that weight, like, what are we doing here? Why are we encouraging that? And his chin just wasn't there, and he even said that he just felt like shit going into the fight. And it's like, these are world-class athletes. Like, you're never going to feel 100% going into a fight, but why are we encouraging that?
Yeah. And I think, from his point of view, like, and possibly even like the promotions, he wanted to come down, he wanted to beat Cejudo, take the belt, become like two division world champion, which he was already, I'm assuming, already making weight, cutting weight for bantamweight, right?
He I think he walks around about 150.
Yeah, so he'd have to lose a bit of weight for bantamweight as it is, but he probably just seen, a 10-pound weight difference. It's just a little bit more of a challenge, like, I'll just try and, dehydrate my body more, or, cut even more weight out. Like, it's just not a sustainable way, I don't think, going forward for the sport. And I always say this, I say this to anybody I have the discussion about. It's like, surely if you're all cutting a very similar amount of weight, like if you're bumped up to your normal weight, you're probably going to be within about 5-10 pounds of each other anyway, maybe 5 pounds of each other. Like, some of the big guys who, fight at 77 kilos but walk around at 90 kilos. You look at the 77 kilo division, I would assume most people are probably walking around, maybe somewhere like 87 to 92 range, roughly, maybe. Some maybe a bit more, some maybe a bit less. I mean, I would hope there'd have to be some sort of like protocol put in place that fighters can't cheat, that fighters can't try and, because even I've heard with the one hydration test for a bit.
Yeah, a mutual friend of ours was saying that the hydration tests are very easy to cheat. But that being said, there must be something to them, otherwise they wouldn't use them. So I think if you add that, mix it in with like day of weigh-ins. One thing I didn't like about the British Open was it was like minute before weigh-ins. I'm not a fan of that.
There's no cutting weight for the British Open,
like,
I'll tell you.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. But morning of, like, let's say 10 a.m, you're gonna fight at 6. So you can diet, or you can, like, I don't know, if you really want to starve yourself the day before, you can do that. But like, that should eliminate the water cutting.
But then a caveat to that is, the weigh-ins as a whole, they like, people like to see the weigh-in as almost like a spectacle of its own. You see it's the
I
last
know.
time these guys face off before they jump in the cage, and usually a day before as well. It builds up the excitement.
I know, and I think combat sports fans need to grow the fuck up.
Yeah, there's definitely better ways of doing it. I mean, maybe I was thinking this, like, similar to how, like, they're, especially with the UFC guys, they're in like a USADA pool where they could get tested year round at any point.
Yeah.
Perhaps they get put into a pool for weight
Average
cutting as
weight.
well.
Yeah.
And it may be something where they have to record their weight throughout the year so that they're not making massive weight cuts. Then you could kind of figure out, okay, like, all these guys on average are weighing about this time. Okay, so
Yeah.
once the 170-pound division needs to be bumped up to, say, 185, and everybody, like Usman or whatever, okay, he's the champion there now, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like the more people like dehydrate, and it's gonna get extreme. You're gonna see bad things happen to people at some stage.
Yeah.
And
100%.
as people try and push to the extreme, push to get the maximum out of their like performance and
Yeah.
get the
and
biggest
also,
edge.
Business-wise, how many fights have been cancelled because people didn't make weight?
There you
or
go.
something like that. As we start to wrap up, you started coaching recently.
Yes.
How has that been for you?
Yeah. So that's been good. Like, it's all come around so fast actually. Like, it only started, in the sort of summertime before James has his MMA fight. I think the first one I did was like a nogi session, just covering for him. I was absolutely like bricking it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I
it was
remember
like,
it. It was cool.
Yeah, because it was like I walked in and it was a busy class. Pretty much full mats. Some of the guys may not have seen me or like known of me. And yeah, I always knew that it was something I was interested in and I wanted to do at one stage, but I suppose I never thought this was going to be how it would be. Perhaps, I didn't really know how it was going to start, but yeah, it ended up coming about because of that. And, it started out as just covering for Nogi, and then I think maybe covering some of like Raj's sessions. And then now, when lockdown, officially ended, then it became like, okay, well, there's, a beginner program or, a couple classes a week that we need you to cover. Would you want to do it? And I just thought, yeah, I'd just jump to the opportunity because I knew, like, I think I felt like this was the right stage for me to start. And again, same thing. I've never really looked back since then.
Yeah. I mean, that first class I was there. I really enjoyed that first class. It was also just, as a mate, just nice to see someone advance like that. But also just in general, like, it was a great class. So,
thank you.
compliments to you there.
Yeah.
I do remember seeing you before and then speaking to you after, and you basically said what you just said. It was, that was really funny. But now you're very, very confident. And you almost, I thought this when Raj started coaching more full time. You offer something different. Going back to what you were saying earlier. You as a coach offer something very different to what James would, what Raj would, and you complement them very well.
Yeah.
Do you feel like coaching is something you'd want to do full time if you could, or jiu-jitsu as a whole?
Yeah, it's definitely an area that I don't discount. It's something I've thought about so much as well. Like, I see a lot of people, like a lot of people in Nottingham I train with, for example, they've started branching off and they've, started doing their own schools and teaching full time off of that, making like a living from it, which are really good to see because it wasn't an avenue that was available, say even 5-10 years ago. It was, the opportunities were much less. And I think even now we're at a stage where, like, if we're just talking jiu-jitsu terms and not even like MMA or anything, you can, it's not easy, but you can make a living from competing and from teaching, and especially like merging the two together. So that's definitely something I've considered. And I do enjoy it as well. I do genuinely enjoy it. I think that's a big thing because sometimes you see competitors and people who just like jiu-jitsu in general try and make the transition to teaching it, and it's definitely different. It's not, there's things that I didn't expect that have cropped up, and I thought, okay, it's made me think a little bit more about it. But I'd say, as the time's gone on and as I've taught more, I have grown in like confidence and like ability. Again, I'd say like I'm far from like the finished product. Like, I'm still learning myself and I don't know everything, but I think that's the thing with jiu-jitsu is like the key is, it's like you're just passing it on like a legacy from one person to another. Like, you know, I've had people coach me, and now I'm coaching like the next generation, and hope, you know, one day I'll coach them, and they'll coach, you know, the next people, and that's how it gets passed on. You know, that's how, you know, this sport sort of stays alive. Because if you don't have people who are like passionate and ambitious and, you know, want to learn, and not everybody will be, that's a great thing. You have, I think the benefit of jiu-jitsu, which is slightly different to perhaps like striking MMA, is it may attract a more sort of casual base of people who just want to come and want to train and want to, you know, maybe just make some new friends and want to do something with their time in the evenings and stuff. So it is really good to see, and to be able to like teach that, like it is, I really like it. And of course, one day it would definitely be one of my goals to like open up my own academy, you know, and again just continue teaching and, you know, to like teach the next generation, I suppose, and show like what, you know, martial arts, like show martial arts, and, you know, let people learn from it the way that I've learned from it as a kid as well. You know, keeping me channeled and keeping me disciplined. So yeah, it's definitely a possibility.
I think that's a really cool way to finish the podcast.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that.
Yes.
You can follow Amric on Instagram at Amric Bisler, no spaces. I'll link it down below on the YouTube. Do you have a PT account yet?
No, not yet. But again, yeah, doing one-to-one sessions. Started like last month, so yeah, no gi, whatever your level may be, whether you're looking to compete or whether you're just starting out and you want just like, you know, tailored individual like support on your jiu-jitsu, I can come and I can help you out, and yeah, we can start working, get your level up.
Nice. Is that just in Coventry at the minute?
Yeah, so pretty much based out of Lions Gym.
Sweet.
So yeah.
Awesome. Amric, thank you so much for coming on. It's
Thank you,
been
Josh.
amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Great. I look forward to having you on soon.
Yeah, in the future.
Cool.
That'll be cool.
Have a good one.
Thank you.